Hi there guys, Mr. Davis here. This is my lesson on lever systems. The learning objective is I will learn how lever systems work to create movement in the body. So hopefully from previous lessons, we'll remember that movement takes place at joints in the body where two or more bones meet to create that movement. And all joints are essentially lever systems. And you see lever systems not just in the body, but all around the world in different contexts. So for example, the seesaw is a lever system. It's a particular arrangement of different pieces, three different pieces, which allow movement to take place. As you can see on this example, this is what we call a first class lever system. And all first class lever systems have this bit in the middle, and this bit is what we call the fulcrum. And what I want to do in the middle here is just establish what the arrangement of these three different parts are. So as you can see, a seesaw has this sort of shape in the middle. And that, as I said, is called the fulcrum. Sometimes people call it the pivot. We're going to call it the fulcrum. And underneath, just going to put a little F to remember that, the fulcrum. Now, that's the kind of shape of the seesaw. And on the seesaw, you have one individual who's sitting here, and they are essentially the weight. We're going to call them the resistance. So we're going to put an R underneath for resistance. And that weight or resistance is always going to go down. Hence why the seesaw is slanted down like that. Now, in order to get any movement in this lever system, we have to have someone or something on the other side. This individual who's going to come and sit here, they are going to apply force or effort in order to make this individual move. So in order to move this part here, this individual here is going to have to apply force or effort. And we're going to put effort for E. So the three key parts of the lever system are fulcrum here in the middle, resistance on this side, and effort on this side. Now in this particular setup, the effort is going to have to go down in order for that lever system to move. So when you're drawing lever system, you've always got to make sure that you show the effort, the fulcrum, and the resistance, and you always put the arrows to show the direction of the resistance and the effort. So that's a first class lever system in a kind of real life situation. Fulcrum in the middle, resistance on one side, effort on the other. Doesn't actually matter which way round the effort and the resistance are. For example, if this individual here, this individual here, he says, with the yellow head now, if they were sitting on the seesaw first, they would be at the bottom. And then this individual would come along and they would have to be the effort in order to move it. So it doesn't matter which way round the effort and the resistance are, as long as the fulcrum is in the middle. That would be a first class lever system. And when we're drawing it out, you don't have to draw a seesaw quite like that. You can do it a little bit more simply if I just do it in this box up here. So what you need to have is always you're going to have what we call the lever arm, which is a bit like the bit that you sit on the seesaw. And then I always like to have the fulcrum wherever it is underneath. You're just going to show the different letters. So the fulcrum on one side, the resistance on one side, and the effort on the other side. This is a first class lever system. And because we always need to show the directions of the movement or the directions of the effort and the resistance, somewhere here I need to make it clear that this effort is going to come down. That effort's going to come down in order to move the weight or the resistance, which is also down. That's a first class lever system. Fulcrum in the middle, effort and resistance either side. Now we need to be able to apply that to the body because we're looking at joints and where movement takes place, and ideally we need to be able to come up with sporting examples. So one sporting example of a first-class lever system might be a football throw-in. So just take a minute to look at it, see if you can work out in the arm, what part there is the effort, what part's the fulcrum, and what part is the resistance. Hopefully you can see. Let's start with the fulcrum, which is this bit here. That is where the fulcrum is, the elbow. The weight or the resistance is actually the ball. That's the bit that's going to be moving. And in order to throw the ball, how shall we do this one? The triceps in the arm have to be working. So it doesn't matter on this example, because the football player is throwing the ball to the right, the diagram is actually the other way around from our worked example up here. It kind of emphasizes the point that the resistance and the effort don't need to be that way around. It could equally be the other way around, as long as the fulcrum is always in the middle. So that ball, if you didn't hold on to it, the ball would drop down. But the triceps are having to work and they pull down to make sure that that ball is then moved. And they use this central part here known as the fulcrum. So let's have a look at another part. This time we're going to have a look at a second-class lever system. Second-class lever. And again, we've got these three parts. We've got the fulcrum, we've got the resistance, and we've got the effort. But this time, the arrangement is slightly different. So this time, have a quick look. Where do you think the fulcrum is? So this time, the wheels are the fulcrum. So for the sake of continuity, we're still just going to have a triangle to represent the fulcrum, even though that wouldn't be a particularly effective wheelbarrow. Just helps us understand that that's still the fulcrum. Now the actual wheelbarrow will go a little bit like this, and this middle bit is what is being carried in the wheelbarrow. Now, as always, this resistance is just going to go down. If you weren't trying to move it, that weight would just go down. Because we want to try and move it, because it's a lever system, the effort is now going to come at this end. At this time, in order to make this part of the lever system move, our effort, when you come to a wheelbarrow, is lifting it up. So in this example, the effort is going to go up. As you come to the wheelbarrow and you want to move it, the effort is going to come up. So what this looks like in terms of a simple diagram, again, you can just have a straight line. At this time, we're going to have the fulcrum on this side. And again, for now, we'll just put F for fulcrum. We're going to have the resistance in the middle. Some people draw a little box around it. Okay, and then we're going to have the effort on this side. What's the only other thing that we need to add to our diagram? The arrows. Resistance always coming down. Effort in this example is going up. So on the second-class lever, the resistance is in the middle, and it doesn't matter which way around the fulcrum or the effort are. It could be left, it could be right. It doesn't matter as long as you're clear on what's in the middle. In terms of a sporting example, the ankles is your go-to example. So the ankle joint and that movement of going up onto your balls of your feet or your tiptoes, that's known as plantar flexion, and we'll cover that in another day. But the point is, you should be able to see here, that's the fulcrum. That's where you're placing the effort there. The weight of your body is coming down, and it's your gastrocnemius here that's having to work for you to rise up. So as you can see, while it's the opposite way around to the worked example in the middle here, this time the fulcrum's on this side, you've got the resistance in the middle, and you've got the effort on this side. Essentially, the key elements are resistance is in the middle, effort and fulcrum either side, and the effort is going up. That's a second-class lever system. Third and final one you may have guessed, is a third class lever. So on a third class lever, the arrangement is again slightly different, but the same three key parts. And we use the idea of a fishing rod or someone fishing. So always going to have the fulcrum, the resistance, and the effort as your three key parts. Take a second to think which way round that might look on an example as you map it out. So on the first example, the fulcrum was in the middle. On the second example, the second class lever, the resistance was in the middle. On the third class lever, the effort is in the middle. So if the effort is here in the middle, you know that the resistance and the fulcrum have to be either side. Now it's this little chap here that's essentially representing the weight or the resistance. They are needing to be pulled up because at the moment he wants to go back down into the sea. The effort, in order for that to be lifted up, effort has to come up. So the natural weight here is again always going to go down. Effort through the middle of the rod is going to be pulling up. And this part here where he's holding onto it will be essentially the fulcrum. So on a diagram like we've done above, you have your lever arm. Always just put the middle part in first. So in our case here, we're going to have the effort. We're going to have the resistance here. Resistance always going down. In this third class lever, effort is going up. And we'll just do our fulcrum in our standard triangle shape here. That's an example of a third class lever where the effort is in the middle. Resistance and fulcrum can be either side. In terms of a sporting example, this is the one that can be a little bit confusing. Now, as you can see here, it's pretty clear that this is the weight. And if you wasn't holding it, this would go down. So the resistance is going to go down. Now, this is pretty clear that this is the fulcrum. Now, the tricky thing is when you perform a bicep curl, you may be thinking that your biceps are actually behind the fulcrum back here. So your elbow is kind of central. And that's what's tricky to imagine. That's why I've got this picture of me here with my enormous big bicep that's sticking out so far that it's actually in front of the fulcrum. The effort is your biceps, and the effort is going up in order to lift this resistance, which, as we know, is going down. So you've just got to remember that even though you might be thinking that the biceps are on the other side of the elbow, because Mr. Davis's biceps are so enormously big, they actually come to the middle, and it's the effort that comes through here. If you think of the forearm here, it's coming up, even though you might associate your biceps with the other side of the elbow, the effort is coming up through here. It's just that your biceps are the muscle that's responsible for that movement. Now, the final thing I want to explain, which hopefully just ties all of this in together, is a very simple rhyme to help you remember the key information. And the rhyme goes like this: F, R, E, 1, 2, 3. In a first class lever system, the fulcrum is in the middle, and it doesn't matter which way round, left or right, you have the resistance, as long as the fulcrum is in the middle. On a second class lever system, the resistance is in the middle, and it doesn't matter which way round you have the fulcrum and the effort, left or right, as long as you put the resistance in the middle. And on a third class lever system, the effort is in the middle. It's always in the middle, and it doesn't matter which way round, left or right, the fulcrum or the resistance is. So as long as you remember FRE 1, 2, 3, and you remember that that tells you what is in the middle, you should be able to draw first class lever system, a second class lever system, and a third class lever system. And that is our introductory lesson on lever systems.